I awoke with a start, my body shivering from the cold stone floor beneath me. The darkness was suffocating, and the air was thick with the stench of decay. I tried to remember who I was, how I had ended up in this forsaken place, but my mind was a blank slate, devoid of any memories. As my eyes adjusted to the darkness, I realized I was in a church. The once holy sanctuary was now a grotesque mockery of its former self, with shattered stained glass windows and overturned pews. The walls were smeared with filth and dried blood, and the altar was desecrated with the remains of what appeared to be a gruesome ritual. I stumbled to my feet, my legs weak and unsteady. That's when I noticed the video camera lying next to me. It was an old, battered model, but it seemed to be in working order. Curiosity piqued. I picked it up and pressed the play button. The screen flickered to life, revealing a scene that made my stomach churn. It was me, standing in the very same church, my hands and clothes drenched in blood. I watched in horror as I brutally murdered several people, their screams echoing through the church as I dismembered them with a sickening glee. The footage was shaky and grainy, but there was no denying the monstrous acts I had committed. As the video ended, I dropped the camera in shock, my heart pounding in my chest. I couldn't believe what I had just seen. Was I a monster? A cold-blooded killer? The thought was too horrifying to bear. Suddenly, a voice whispered in my ear, sending shivers down my spine. "You're next." I spun around, but there was no one there. The church was empty, save for the shadows that seemed to dance and taunt me. I tried to convince myself that it was just my imagination, a trick of my mind, but the voice was so real, so close. I knew I had to escape this nightmare, to find answers and reclaim my lost memories. I stumbled through the dark, my hands outstretched, searching for an exit. As I made my way towards the front of the church, I heard the voice again, louder this time. "You cannot escape your fate." I ignored the voice, my resolve strengthened by the fear that gripped me. I found the door and pushed it open, the rusty hinges screeching in protest. The night air was cold and unforgiving, but it was a welcome relief from the oppressive darkness of the church. I wandered through the desolate streets, the moon casting eerie shadows on the crumbling buildings. The town was abandoned, a ghost of its former self. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched, that the voice was still with me, lurking in the shadows. As I walked, I began to find clues to my past. A newspaper article detailing a series of brutal murders, a wanted poster with my face on it, a blood-stained journal filled with my own twisted thoughts and confessions. The evidence was overwhelming, and I could no longer deny the truth. I was a monster, but why? What had driven me to commit such heinous acts? And why couldn't I remember any of it? The voice continued to haunt me, growing louder and more insistent with each passing moment. You cannot outrun your sins. I tried to block it out, to focus on finding answers, but it was relentless. It seemed to know my every thought, my every fear. It was a constant reminder of the darkness that lived within me, a darkness that I could not escape. As the night wore on, I began to feel a growing sense of dread, as if something terrible was about to happen. The voice had become a cacophony of whispers, a chorus of torment that threatened to consume me. And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the whispers stopped. I stood in the middle of the street, my heart pounding in my chest, waiting for the voice to return. But it was gone, replaced by an eerie silence that was somehow even more terrifying. I knew that I couldn't stay in this town any longer. I had to leave, to find a way to atone for my sins and reclaim my humanity. But as I turned to go, I heard the sound of footsteps behind me. I spun around, my heart in my throat, and found myself face to face with a figure cloaked in darkness. The moonlight revealed a twisted, demonic visage, its eyes burning with an unholy fire. "You cannot escape your fate," it hissed, its voice a chilling echo of the whispers that had haunted me. I tried to run, but my legs were like lead, weighed down by the weight of my sins. The demon advanced, its claws outstretched, ready to claim my soul. As I stared into the abyss, I knew that there was no escaping the darkness within me. I had become the very thing I had feared, a monster consumed by the horrors of my own making. And as the demon's claws closed around my throat, I finally understood the truth. I was next. As the demon's claws tightened around my throat, I felt the life, felt the draining life draining from my body. My vision blurred, and the world around me began to fade. But in that moment of despair, a flicker of defiance ignited within me. I refused to let this monster claim me without a fight. Summoning the last of my strength, I reached for a broken shard of glass that lay nearby. With a desperate lunge, I drove the jagged edge into the demon's arm, causing it to release its grip on my throat. The creature howled in pain, its eyes burning with rage. I staggered back, gasping for air, my body trembling from the effort. The demon glared at me, its wounds already beginning to heal. I knew I couldn't defeat it through brute force alone. I needed to find another way. As I searched my surroundings for anything that could help me, I remembered the desecrated church where I had awoken. Perhaps there was something within its walls that could banish this demon and free me from its grasp. With the creature hot on my heels, I raced back to the church, my heart pounding in my chest. The once sacred sanctuary now seemed like my only hope for salvation. As I burst through the doors, I scanned the room for anything that might help me. My eyes fell upon the tarnished crucifix that still hung above the altar. It was a long shot, but it was all I had. I sprinted towards the altar, the demon's snarls echoing through the church. I grabbed the crucifix, feeling its cold metal in my hands, and turned to face my tormentor. The demon hesitated, its eyes narrowing as it regarded the symbol of faith I now wielded. I could see the uncertainty in its gaze, and I seized the opportunity. "By the power of this holy symbol, I command you to leave me," I shouted, my voice filled with a conviction I didn't know I possessed. The demon recoiled, its form flickering and wavering as if it were being torn apart by some unseen force. It let out a guttural scream, its eyes filled with hatred and fear. As the creature's form disintegrated before my eyes, I felt a sudden surge of energy coursing through my body. It was as if the darkness that had consumed me was being purged, replaced by a newfound sense of purpose and clarity. The demon's screams faded into nothingness, and I was left standing in the church, the crucifix still clutched in my hands. I knew that I had been given a second chance, an opportunity to atone for my sins and reclaim my humanity. I set out on a journey to make amends for the horrors I had committed, determined to use my newfound strength to help those in need. Along the way, I encountered others who had been touched by darkness, and I offered them the same chance at redemption that I had been given. As I walked the path of atonement, I came to understand that the demon had been a manifestation of my own guilt and self-loathing. By confronting and overcoming it, I had taken the first step towards healing and redemption. And though the road ahead was long and fraught with challenges, I knew that I would never again be alone in my struggle. For I had learned that even in the darkest of times, there is always a glimmer of hope, a chance to rise above the shadows and embrace the light. For just $3 a month, you can have your name featured in my YouTube videos and descriptions. Not only will you be supporting my channel, but you'll also be immortalized in the credits of my content. If you're looking for something a bit more personalized, consider becoming a $25 a month patron. I'll voice your stories and bring them to life on my channel. Create a special drawing just for you, or even write a unique story tailored to your interests. So don't hesitate. Join my patron community today and help me keep the spooky stories coming. And remember, together we can save each other from the YouTube algorithm. Thank you for your support.